There is something about how people in the 1960s talked about the future that captures a particular kind of American optimism. The absolute certainty that tomorrow would be better, the confidence that technology would solve every problem, the belief that flying cars and moon colonies were just around the corner. If someone remembers those conversations, they know exactly how electric that feeling was. This was a time when the space race was proving that the impossible was possible, when World's Fairs showed gleaming visions of cities to come, when scientists and writers and ordinary people all agreed that the year 2000 would be a paradise of automation and leisure. This was the decade that gave us the Jetsons, Star Trek, and magazine covers promising personal helicopters by 1980. The atomic age had arrived, and it was supposed to change everything. The future was not something people feared in the 1960s. It was something they celebrated. Let's walk through how people actually imagined what was coming. Some of this might seem quaint now. Some of it was remarkably accurate. Some of it reveals just how much hope one generation placed in tomorrow. Let's step into that world. The space race transformed how Americans thought about what was possible. When President Kennedy declared in 1961 that America would land a man on the moon before the decade was out, it seemed almost absurd. People believed it. And when it happened in 1969, that belief was validated in the most spectacular way imaginable. If rockets could reach the moon, what could humanity not accomplish? The logic seemed airtight. Space stations would orbit Earth by 1980. Moon colonies would follow by 1990. Mars missions were planned for the early 2000s. Families would vacation in orbit. Children would grow up expecting to visit other planets the way their parents visited other states. Popular Mechanics and Life magazine ran cover stories about orbital hotels and lunar mining operations. These were not science fiction fantasies. They were presented as engineering problems that would be solved within a generation. The experts agreed. The trajectory was clear. Space was the next frontier, and Americans were going to settle it. The 1964 New York World's Fair was where the future came to life. Over 50 million people visited Flushing Meadows to see what tomorrow would look like. General Motors presented Futurama 2, a massive exhibit showing cities of the future with automated highways, underwater hotels, and colonies on the moon. Visitors sat in moving chairs that carried them through elaborate dioramas of what 2024 would supposedly look like. The fair promised a world transformed by technology. Bell Telephone showed the picture phone, a video calling device that would let people see one another while they talked. General Electric displayed a fusion reactor that would provide unlimited clean energy. IBM demonstrated computers that would handle the tedious work of daily life. Every exhibit reinforced the same message. Technology was going to make life easier, cleaner, and more exciting than anyone could imagine. What was striking about futurism in the 1960s was its absolute confidence. There was no anxiety about automation taking jobs. Machines handling work meant more leisure time. People would work fewer hours and spend more time enjoying life. The 3-day work week was considered inevitable. The bigger question was what people would do with all their free time. Nuclear energy was supposed to be the foundation of this new world. Atoms for Peace had promised electricity too cheap to meter. Nuclear-powered cars and airplanes were on the drawing board. Some predictions suggested every home would have its own small reactor. The destructive power that ended World War II would be transformed into unlimited abundance. Before we continue with how television and magazines shaped these dreams, if you are enjoying this look back at how people imagined the future and want to explore more decades and perspectives, consider subscribing. There are so many more stories about how Americans have understood their world and what was coming. Television brought the future into living rooms every week. The Jetsons premiered in 1962 and showed a family living in a world of flying cars, robot maids, and moving sidewalks. George Jetson worked 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, and still complained about his job. The show was comedy, but the technology was presented as inevitable. Star Trek launched in 1966 and offered a more serious vision. It showed communicators that looked like flip phones, computer systems that responded to voice commands, automatic doors that opened as people approached, and medical devices that could diagnose illnesses instantly. The show presented a future where humanity had solved its social problems and reached the stars. Lost in Space, The Time Tunnel, and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea all reinforced the same themes. The future belonged to explorers and scientists. Technology would open new frontiers. Humanity's potential was limitless. Magazines were filled with predictions that seemed completely reasonable at the time. Personal helicopters would replace cars. Cities would be enclosed in climate-controlled domes. Meals would come in pill form. Housework would be handled entirely by robots. Mail would be delivered by pneumatic tubes. Underwater cities would house millions. The confidence in these predictions was remarkable. Writers did not say these things might happen. They said they would happen. The only question was exactly when. Some predictions were cautious, suggesting the year 2000. Others were more optimistic, promising flying cars by 1980. What stands out about futurism in the 1960s is what it got wrong and what it got right. Predictions about space travel were wildly optimistic. There are no moon colonies. Mars remains unvisited by humans. Space tourism exists, but only barely. By contrast, predictions about communication and information prove surprisingly accurate, even understated. Video calling exists on devices far smaller than anyone imagined. Computers do handle much of the tedious work of life. Information is available instantly from anywhere. In some ways, the actual future exceeded what 1960s futurists imagined possible in these areas. The optimism of 1960s futurism came from a specific historical moment. America had won World War II, rebuilt Europe, and was leading the world economically and technologically. The standard of living had improved dramatically within living memory. If progress continued at that pace, paradise really did seem achievable. There was also a faith in institutions and expertise that seems almost foreign now. When scientists said something was possible, people believed them. When government invested in a project, people expected it to succeed. The moon landing proved that big goals could be achieved through collective effort. Schools reinforced these visions. Children were told they might live on Mars or work in orbiting factories. Career guidance suggested jobs that did not exist yet. The message was consistent. The future would be different, and it would be better. Even everyday products promised futuristic transformation. Kitchen appliances would cook meals automatically. Cars would drive themselves. Homes would clean themselves. The advertising of the era painted pictures of effortless living just around the corner. What defined how people in the 1960s spoke about the future was unshakable confidence in progress. The challenges seemed technical, not fundamental. It was not a question of whether humanity could build a better tomorrow, only how fast it would happen. The trajectory pointed upward, and nothing seemed capable of changing that direction. The decade had its anxieties, certainly. The Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Vietnam cast shadows. But even these tensions existed alongside genuine belief that science and technology would ultimately triumph. The same rockets that could carry nuclear warheads could also carry astronauts to other worlds. For those who remember reading magazine articles, watching television shows, and visiting world's fairs, the future looked spectacular. It was gleaming and automated and just beyond the horizon. Every rocket launch confirmed it. Every new invention proved it. Tomorrow was going to be extraordinary. The future people imagined in the 1960s never quite arrived, but something else did. something with smartphones and the internet and global connection that those futurists never dreamed of. The flying cars are still waiting, but the communicators from Star Trek are in everyone's pocket. For those with memories of this remarkable era of optimism about tomorrow, there is always more history to explore.